Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first Warrant Committee meeting of this new fiscal year. My name is Jay Funlin. The moderator, Liz Dillon, has asked me to chair the beginning of this meeting. And until the Warrant Committee elects a chair for this year. We already met outside of the Baron Hugo gazebo, and all members who are attending here today are sworn in. So, for the first thing we'll do is have introductory remarks by the moderator, Liz Dillon.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it. So this is going to be a really wonderful and productive year. I'm really glad to see some returning faces and some new faces. There are some additional people that were not able to be here today, but they will or have been sworn in by the town clerk, and then will be joining us, hopefully joining you, I should say, the next meeting. Before I leave and you all elect your chair and your secretary, which Jay can explain that process, I just wanted to give a few very brief remarks. So the Warrant Committee is very near and dear to my heart, having been, until I became moderator, a member of the Warrant Committee. It is extremely important in the town, and so I thank you all for volunteering, applying, and being really eager to start in this whole process. I think that for me, the main thing about the Warrant Committee is that it really is meant to be and has been a very trusted source for many people in town. It is extremely important because it is the townspeople's chance to ask questions, to get information, and to really dig in on all of the town finances and other matters. So for the benefit of the people watching from home and anybody who's a little bit newer to town government, essentially we have the executive branch of our town government, which is the select board. And then we have our legislative branch of our town government, which is town meeting. The Warrant Committee is an advisory committee to town meeting. And so what the Warrant Committee votes in this room, or if there's another meeting in this room for some reason upstairs, but usually it's in this room, what the Warrant Committee votes is advisory and not binding. However, people in town meeting really look to the Warrant Committee kind of to give their perspective, because part of our town's bylaws and also in town meeting time talk about the fact that the Warrant Committee has the opportunity to call upon any employee or elected official of the town to provide information and answer questions about the articles that are in the warrant. So fundamentally, the Warrant Committee serves really two functions. So one of the functions that it serves is our financial committee. That is an incredibly important role, looking into the budget. I know Jay will talk a little bit about that, I think. And so really diving deep into the budget. Some towns only have a finance committee. What makes a Warrant Committee different is that when there are non-financial articles on the Warrant Committee can also vote on and ask questions about and provide a recommendation on those as well. However, town meeting time talks about the fact that when you look at those non-financial articles, what we really want to do is think to ourselves, do I have a particular expertise, maybe not even your job, but an expertise, a knowledge, or a background that would give me some special information that would allow me to ask relevant questions of these town employees. So if you're an attorney like me, maybe you ask legal questions. If you're a finance person, maybe you ask financial questions. If you have, HR experience, maybe you ask questions that are related to personnel, that sort of thing. But of course, anybody's able to ask any questions that are important and that they might want the answer to. You all will meet fairly frequently down in this room. And so again, I really appreciate everybody's willingness to serve. As Jay mentioned, everybody was sworn in the gazebo, which was beautiful. Am I missing anything?
I don't believe so.
That's it. Okay. Well, thank you all. And we'll see you at town meeting in October and on Zoom before that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So our first task, our main tasks for this meeting are to elect a chair and a secretary. So for nominations for chair, I'll open up the floor for nominations for chair of the warrant committee for this year.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Macy Lee for chair. All due respect,
Okay.
Jay, on that. I think that I was on the warrant committee last year, and I know the last couple of years, I think it's important to have an attorney as the chair. There's a lot of town bylaws that you go through. There's a lot of detail, legal detail. I think it's helpful to have an attorney as chair. I think it's also very important to be neutral. I think you have to go into it with non-biases, no agenda. I think the town of Milton has had serious polarization the last few years, and I don't think it's good. I don't think it's healthy. And I like the fact that I think Macy, this is a surprise, by the way. I didn't campaign for her or anything, but I spent the weekend thinking about this. And like who the best one would be. And I think that last year she was very non-biased. There wasn't like a side, like you didn't know. I did not always vote with her. We disagreed on a number of issues. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think that she took time to think about an issue, was very thoughtful in what she thought. And even when we disagreed, I thought she was very thoughtful in how she presented her arguments. And she had a lot of good questions too. I think that, I think diversity is important. I think it's been well over a decade since there's been a woman chair. I don't even know that Milton's ever had a person of color as chair. And I think the town's getting a lot more diverse, which is a good thing. It's healthy. And I think it'd be good to have some diversity on it. And I think that, and I looked her up on LinkedIn. Sorry about that. Stalking, I know. And impressive resume. And I think it's important, but, I think that, like, management experience is helpful. And right now, I think she's like director on the board of Mass, Executive Office of Health and Human Services. I think she told me once she has 60 people that she oversees. And when you're in that department, you have to be very impartial, fair, and you have to be you have to have good judgment on what you do. And she has been promoted a number of times. She's been an attorney, I think, for 30-something years, and had a lot of promotions during that time. Managerial experience is important, and I think legal experience is important. And I think being impartial is also very important. And due respect to Jay, I nothing personal, please. But I do think it's helpful. I'll just go through it. Like 4 points would be like having an attorney is really helpful. It's not critical, but it's helpful. I think having somebody who's diverse, bringing diversity to the chair is helpful. And I don't think it's critical either, but it's helpful. It's good. I think being a centrist, being non-biased, centrist, you don't know how somebody's going to go on something is very important, and I think it's very important to the town of Milton right now. And I think that managerial experience is important too. And I think it's just crucial. So those are my thoughts this weekend. So that's my motion.
Macy, do you accept the nomination?
I do. I'm very humbled, honored by this surprise nomination. So thank you for the kind words, Brian.
Yeah, I know. We didn't always agree.
No, we don't.
Which means you're not right all the time.
I would have begged to differ on that. I see you too.
I know we did disagree on a bunch of stuff, but I don't know. It's good.
Should I make a statement, or I'm not prepared?
Sure.
What, need to say anything?
I think I want to open it up for any other nominations, and then the nominees can speak.
I would like to nominate Jay Fundling for chair. Brian, I agree with everything you said about Macy, and also acknowledge that it's only Macy's second year on the committee, and it is now Jay's fourth year. And I think experience in this committee and as a town meeting member, as Jay is important. I think we could probably all agree there's no one that works harder and puts more time and effort into the Warrant Committee than Jay. He is always incredibly prepared and goes the distance to, he's at the library looking up files that aren't digitized because he's going back in the history of the town. And so like I said, I agree with everything you said, Brian, and I would love to see a female in this role. I'd love to see a minority in this role, and I think Macy would be great in another year maybe. But tonight I'm here to nominate Jay Fundling for chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, did someone second Macy's nomination?
Well, I took Macy's acceptance as a second.
Okay.
Are there any other nominations? Okay. So I think it's a good time to hear from each of the people who've been nominated. AC, would you like to go first or second?
Before we go there, one thing, I really hate this process because I went through it for the first time last year. For people that, I know there's some returning warrant committee members that were from past years. It's basically an impossible process for you. We just met for the first time, and you're being asked to vote for a chair that you don't really have any working experience on. And in many respects, I'm torn because I agree with everything that's being said. And I'm not really sure how I'm going to vote on this process, but I guess thinking back to where I was last year, I would encourage you to take the time to ask questions that you think are important for you to make this decision, not just listen to what both Jay and Macy are about to say, because I think they're both qualified to be great leaders. It's just a question of, I think boils down to working style at the end of the day. So I don't envy you for people that don't know Jay or Macy, but I don't believe I abstained last year. I will not this year either. Hopefully you'll just make a decision, and either way, I think we're in good hands. I'll leave it at that. But I wish there were a better process than to do this on day one.
True.
Macy, would you like to speak first or second?
Sure, I'll just make a brief statement. I did meet all of you at the gazebo, and I was really glad to do that. But as Brian mentioned, I've lived in Milton since 2003. I started my residency here on Lyman Road, and then we moved to Crestview Lane, and now I'm on Brook Road. I have 2 adult children, both of whom went to Milton schools. I have a 22-year-old and a 26-year-old. And I've been involved in the community. I'm now the vice president of the Milton Garden Club, something that I really love because I love to garden. And it brings out a part of me that I normally don't see, which is creativity, focus, and just the process of growing things. So if you stop by my house, you'll see all the tomato plants that I started from seeds growing, and zucchinis and cucumbers, and I don't even like tomatoes. That's the crazy thing. I just like growing them because they're so challenging. In terms of my professional life, as Brian mentioned, I've been an attorney now for close to 33 years. I've always been a public servant. I started out in the Attorney General's office as an assistant attorney general. And then I was a prosecutor in Cleveland for 7 years and then moved back here. I clerked in the Court of Appeals, which is the federal intermediate appeals court for the First Circuit. And then I joined the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. And I spent 15 years there, first in the appellate unit, because one of the things I really love to do as an attorney, and I don't get to do much anymore, is to write and to research. It's one of my strongest strengths as an attorney. And then after that, I was promoted to become the chief of the Narcotics and Asset Forfeiture Unit. where I'm really proud to say that I've seized the greatest amount of fentanyl in New England in all of the history of any narcotics work. Took them off the street, heroin, cocaine. It was a job that I really was proud of. But then, it got kind of old, and I joined the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. I was a Deputy General Counsel and got promoted to the Director of the Adjudicatory Board for Mass Health. So I'm the director of, it's called the Board of Hearings. It's one of the largest adjudicatory boards in Massachusetts because we hear about 30,000 appeals a year. And that includes provider appeals, which hospitals appeal. We had a little discussion of that. And then member appeals that request fair hearings because of eligibility for whatever mass health action my office handles. So I oversee a staff of about 60 people. I'm well versed in running meetings. I'm very well versed with organizational and structural management. I have 4 deputies and various supervisors. Like I said, Brian's right, I supervise approximately 60 people, and I answer directly to the office, the Medicaid director for Mass Health. So if you decide to think that I'm the best fit to be chair of this very important committee for the town of Milton, I'm committed to being here. I was here with the exception of 2 weeks in January where I traveled with my family, but I will be here in person and do the work that's necessary. And I think most importantly, I will be fair, unbiased, impartial, which is a role that I'm very well versed in because as the director of the Board of Hearings, I need to do that. And I do conduct hearings when there are rehearings. So it's my role to listen to both sides, let the parties speak, and then move forward. And I think in this particular position, I think it's really important to keep everyone on task, to value everyone's time because it is very time consuming, especially last year, to keep our meetings where they need to be because I personally start to fade after 10:30 at night. I just can't focus. I need and it takes me an hour to unwind whenever I leave here or a town meeting. So I will be respectful of your time. One of my managerial strengths is I'm very organized. I have a strong ability to multitask and to work with all sorts of personalities. And that's from 25 years of management experience and working with all sorts of agencies, federal, state, local, and with a really the largest secretariat in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So sorry to go on, but thank you, Brian, for the nomination. I'm so humbled.
Sorry for
and so surprised. So I know I'm rambling because I didn't expect this at all, but I thank everyone for their consideration. And as Andrew said, and Brian, it's going to be a great year regardless of who's at the helm. So thank you very much.
Okay. I'll speak a little bit. My name is Jay. It's my 4th year on the Warrant Committee. I've been on town meeting for a little over 10 years. My background is more financial. I was an actuary for 15 years, and now I work at Eversource. I do want to share a presentation of where I see what my vision is for the Warrant Committee this year. All right, so, come on. Slideshow. Okay, so this is how I see the Warrant Committee running this year. I'll skip past the table of contents. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on every subject, don't worry. First of all, what is the role of the Warrant Committee? Now, Ms. Dillon addressed this a bit. I see 3 things. One, as Ms. Dillon said, we're a trust advisor to town meeting. So we're really the adults in the room. I'm not from New England, I'm from Texas. So when I explain this committee to people who don't live in New England, I explain that instead of a city council, our town has a town meeting with 280 people. So because 280 people can't do the work that city council does, which is investigate issues, gather facts, we, the Warrant Committee, do that role for them, and we present our results to the larger body. So we collect information, we make decisions, and we present these. So that's how I see our goal. We're doing the work that town meeting can't do because they're too big and unwieldy. And when we make a recommendation to town meeting, it's not just what we recommend. We have to present our reasons why we recommend it. If there's a question, should the town of Milton favor chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream. We can get up there and tell town meeting, we think it should be vanilla. That doesn't do any good unless we say, here's what we looked at, here's what we collected, here's the information we got, here's why we think it's vanilla. We've got to really convince them as to why we're making our decisions. And, you know, a lot of us, we all have various jobs, but a lot of us do things like that in our jobs. We present decisions to our bosses, our peers, our colleagues, and we don't say, boss, I think you should do this because I feel like it. We give them our good reasons. So I think we should bring the same professionalism to this role that we bring to our job. What's next? We're also the finance committee of this town. So what does that mean? Well, if you compare it to the federal government, the town administrator is like the president. They prepare a budget and they present it to the legislative branch. So in this analogy, our role is we're like the House Ways and Means Committee. We receive the budget from the town administrator, we look at it, we scrutinize it, we ask questions about it, and then we present the budget to town meeting, which in this analogy would be Congress. So we should take a long-term view. We're looking at things that town meeting just glosses over, like reserve funds, things like that. We're taking a long view and really seeing what's this going to mean for the town. And we should also establish town financial policies, which I'll be talking more about that in a slide or two. I don't like having big words and just reading them to you on a slide, but I will say, oops, it got cut off at the end. The Mass Department of Revenue looked at this town's government, and including the Warrant Committee, in 2013. Now, this was back when the Warrant Committee wrote the budget from scratch. And the Department of Revenue gave some guidance that I think still applies. We must be willing to step back from more global issues rather than minutia of working on individual department budgets. We should be looking at the whole town, financial policies at a high level. I think we can still benefit from those words. And the fourth one, as has been talked about in the past few minutes, we're non-political. But one way I see that as helping us is, and this may or may not come up this year, but we have a special role. We may be able to make decisions that elected boards and town employees can't. Elected boards have to face the voters, go for re-election. Town employees have to answer to their bosses. We don't have either of those. There might be some times when we can make decisions that they can't. All right. What is the time commitment? I talked to some of you before you signed up, and the question I got from everybody was, how much time will the Warrant Committee take? I'm going to have a goal to make the time more reasonable with a couple ways. One is a lot of our work is budget work. I want to front load that. I'll be talking in a few minutes about how I think we can get a lot of the groundwork for the budget done in the fall, and that way in the spring when we have to finalize the budget, we've already done a lot of the foundation. Now, the flip side of that is I think this will lead to less time sitting here in this room in meetings. It might mean more time for some of you subject matter experts going investigating. You're the subject matter expert in a certain department. We're going to ask you to go learn about that department, educate yourself about it, come back to us. So that would be time consuming, but hopefully it's more reasonable if it's time consuming when it's on your time. You can choose when to do it. And one other way I want to help this committee respect everybody's time is to keep conversations focused. You know, what is the decision in front of us? We have to make a decision and we have to outline the reasoning for that decision. Everything else we don't really need. One example I like to use is when the fire chief comes in. Fire chief comes in every year. And I know for me, I turn into a little kid. I want to hear the fire chief talk to me about fire trucks for an hour. That is fun. That's not necessarily the best use of this committee's time unless it's going to be directly relevant to the budget. So I want to sort of stay focused. And I think I don't have the magic solution for this. I'm going to be talking in a few minutes about how the whole committee should be setting policies early in the year to help us stay guided, to help us stay focused, help us decide what's relevant and what's not on conversations. What is the role of the chair if I want to be chair? One thing is keep us on task, what I just said. We have to have some room to explore. People are going to be going maybe outside the lines a little bit, but try to keep the discussions focused. I will say, I think the chair is 1/15 of the committee, no more, no less. I like making PowerPoint presentations. You can already tell this. I was a little torn. I was like, if I'm chair, can I still make PowerPoint presentations? In my view, I think it's allowable. And the reason I think it's allowable is because I'm equal to all of you. I trust that my opinion will not carry undue weight just because I'm sitting at a certain end of the table. If anyone on this committee is going to do what I recommend just because I'm sitting at this end of the table, you're on the wrong committee. I expect you to all be independent thinkers. I expect you all to be critical thinkers. If I share my opinion, no matter where I'm sitting in this room, I hope you'll take my opinion just the same as everybody else's on the committee. I also intend to abstain from most votes unless it's to break or create a tie. Again, that's so because the chair will be up on town meeting presenting the results of the warrant committee and advocating for what the warrant committee voted for. If we're deciding between chocolate and vanilla, and I really like vanilla, and the warrant committee votes chocolate, I don't want to be on the record voting for vanilla, and then I'm going to have to be in front of town meeting advocating for chocolate. It wouldn't be the end of the world if I did vote that way. Either way, I'd advocate for what the warrant committee decides, but I just prefer to abstain from most votes. Okay, here I want to get into something that I think will be a little bit different than the previous years I've been on the committee. Previous years we've had subcommittees. We passed something around. Previous years we've had subcommittees of 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 people going into various town departments and investigating them. I think that was sort of unwieldy and led to inefficiencies in some way. I'd rather have individual subject matter experts. I'd like to pass around some sheets of paper showing what I think the subject matter experts, the ones that I think we'll need to fill. It looks like a long list. Don't be intimidated. A lot of these are not heavy lifts. But if we have one subject matter expert on each issue, they could go become the expert for that and then come back and report findings to the rest of the committee. I saw there was a survey of the mass finance committees. Out of 135 of them, only about a quarter of them had subcommittees. So it's not unusual to not have subcommittees. How would this subject matter expert thing work? Let's look at an example. Let's look at Bert. Let's say Bert is a member of the warrant committee, and Bert is a subject matter expert for the library. So Bert, in the fall, goes to talk to the library director, find out what their budget issues are, because really, whatever their budget issues were last year and whatever their budget issues are now are probably going to be pretty darn similar to whatever their budget issues will be in the spring. So learn all you can about their budget, how they work, and what their budget needs are. And then in the late fall, early winter, I'm thinking maybe October, probably November, December, the warrant committee hear not from everybody, not from every 39 people on this list, but from the biggest ones. Come in and do a presentation. This is what's going on in the library. Here's what their needs are. Here's what they haven't gotten in previous years. For the smaller ones, I also would want to hear something from the subject matter experts, but it can just be something written. We don't need to hear you come in and talk about here's what the insurance budget is. So at that point, ideally, in the fall, we would have heard from subject matter experts about the major issues of the budget. And then in December, the departments submit their budget to Mr. Milano. In January, Mr. Milano compiles them all, submits the budget to us. Hopefully at that point, we have very few surprises. We already know what the budget issues are for all the department. We're ready to hit the ground running, look at Mr. Milano's budget. Okay. Next. A summit. So I like the word summit better than retreat. The select board and the school committee both have retreats at the beginning of the year. Like I think they're both going to happen within the next month. And I like that. I want to do something similar. So they're long meetings. They're usually not televised. And they're just sort of getting everybody ready for the year, both training and setting the tone for the year. So yeah, I'd like us to meet. First of all, have some training. Assume nobody knows anything. There are some new members, some returning members. Some of the new members have a lot of experience in town government. Some of the new members have no experience in town government. Start from scratch. Bring everybody up to speed. Here's the basics of how town meeting works and how the warrant committee works. I see this will be an open meeting, do open meeting laws. I don't see any reason for it to be televised, so we could feel even more free to ask stupid questions than usual. And I also think we should decide on policies for the year. I think we should set policies for what's in scope and out of scope on our discussions. I'll say more about that in a minute or two. But I think this would be a good time to really set the policies and what are we going to do on warrant committee for this year. I think I don't know exactly how long it would take. I think it'll be longer than the average meeting. So sometimes when I look at the select board and the school committee, sometimes they have it on a weekend day or sometimes they just have 2 weeknights in a row, meet a little bit earlier. So we can talk about what we want as a group for having this longer meeting. And we'd also have some guests from the town to help us get things done. What's next? Policies. I've talked about policies several times. What do I think we need? I'd like to pass these around also. I just want to give some thought to when I say policies, what do I mean? Well, where are we now with town financially? We had a successful override in the spring. Now we can really stay back, take a look at the financial picture, and how do we want the finances to run? As probably the most prominent examples, we have various stabilization funds. There's the do not break except in case of emergency stabilization fund. Then there's also something called a road stabilization fund, a capital stabilization fund. We've got two new ones. One to get us through to the next override. I forget what it's called. Operating budget stabilization fund. We also have a new special education stabilization fund. I don't think it would be best if we just, every year the town administrator decides, oh, here's the amount I'm going to put in and here's the amount I'm going to take out. It'd be better if there were some sorts of guidelines as to how much are we going to put into these, how much are we going to take out, how is this going to keep our budget predictable from year to year. For a policy like this, it's really best to make it before the budget process. If you make the policy while you're in the middle of the budget process, you're not really making a policy. You're saying, oh, here's what I decided to do. Let me write a policy to justify that. I think we're in a good position to make these policies. The select board will want to have their say. There's the new budget coordination committee that I'm still not sure what their role is, but none of that stops us from having our say in what financial policy should be. And finally, I'll think internal policies, like how are we going to conduct our meetings? I have some questions. I have more questions than I have answers. So, let's talk about when we have budget articles here. It's a balancing item. It's a balancing act if we have budget items. The balancing act is we're not the managers of the departments. If we're let's look at the library again. We're not the manager of the library's budget. They have their director. They report to Mr. Milano. So we're not managing the department, but we are approving the budget. So to a certain extent, we do need to go dig deep into what's going on with this department, but then not micromanage them. So what's the balancing act between, asking the fire chief to talk to us about fire trucks for an hour versus doing no investigation? There's got to be a balancing act into, what do we really need in order to approve a budget or not? And like I said, I have the questions, I don't have the answers. I have one brain, you have 14 brains. So I want us to think about these things together. If we're sending subject matter experts out, half this committee is new. If I'm sending you out and saying, go to the library and learn what you need to learn, let's be a little more specific in saying, okay, we want you to ask questions A, B, and C, and D, and anything else you want to ask, that's fine too. Also, if we do want to modify the budget, my understanding is that ever since we've had a strong town administrator, past 8-ish years, the warrant committee has never changed the budget the town administrator presented. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it should at least be within our purview to have the ability to modify the budget. Is the best way to do that to talk to them early on while they're still making the budget and say, we think this and this? If so, that's another benefit to looking into the budget in the fall. Then we're ready. We're ready when Mr. Milano's putting together his budget to say, we think you should look at this and this. Or do we wait till we get the budget and we try to get an agreement with the select board and town administrator? Now we think you should move money from A to B. Do you agree with this? Or do we say, too bad, we're the warrant committee, we'll do on our own. All these are ways to do it. Again, let's give some thought to how we want to accomplish it. And then this is a lot of words sort of saying, so there's budget items, there's non-budget items. This is a lot of words where I sort of say, for the non-budget items, how do we decide those? Do we decide them because we're 15 people and we have 15 opinions and we vote for our opinion? I don't know the answer. I think there's got to be something better than that. We've got to say, okay, how are we going, when we have these non-budget items, how are we going to look into them? What's going to be in scope? What's going to be out of scope? How much deference are we going to give to whoever put it together? And then how are we really going to focus our decision? So that is all. That is all I have for my vision for the year. I also have a schedule for the year, which I was going to pass out later. But I'll leave it at that.
Can I ask some questions?
Please.
So you mentioned you didn't want, like, asking the fire chief about trucks, right?
I mean, I also said it's a balancing act, but yes.
Yeah, so like that's like a over $1.3 million purchase, I think, right? And he didn't, at the time, still didn't have some of the answers to that, why we needed a truck. You don't think that's within the scope of the warrant committee to ask that question?
I think what I would really like to see is for have a fire department expert who goes and learns everything about the fire department, then comes back to us and says, here's what I think is really important. So hopefully it'd be filtered out at that point. I mean, it is a balancing act.
So the expert comes in and he says, oh, we're gonna get a new fire truck. Can the warrant committee can still ask that person that question, like, why do you need
yeah, I guess I'm getting hung up where I shouldn't get hung up, which is fire truck is a capital expense. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how this. So what I'm imagining is that the expert would come back to us and say, the fire chief wanted a new truck, and here's why I think it's a good idea, or here's why I think it's not a good idea. And Mr. Milano's recommending a new truck, and here's why I think it's a good idea. Truck's probably a bad example again because it's capital. But let's say they want a new lieutenant. And the expert comes in and says, yeah, I think it's really, really important. They haven't gotten a new lieutenant in years. I think it's really important, and here's why. That way they've done the work. They're presenting it to us. And then we'll ask the expert questions. What did you look at?
We should still be able to ask those questions.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Just hopefully it's a little smoother.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You had more questions, but Andrew's got his hand raised.
I have questions for both
Okay.
of you guys. And when I think back to the past year, one of the things that, at least from the general business subcommittee work, and some of the other issues that we uncovered that I felt the town lacked, and I want to be careful how I say this, and it's not that the town doesn't plan.
Okay.
I don't think they have the equivalent of long-term strategic planning that a C-level executive might set, or a vision. And one of the things that is another question and endemic of that problem is the lack of reporting capability that we have out of our own financial systems, and the issues that we've had in terms of visibility from the school from a budgeting standpoint. So the question I have is, what are your thoughts on this? And if you agree, what do you think we can do, or how far are you really willing to push the different parts of the town, whether it's the select board or the administrator or the individual departments, to ensure that we have the information that we need, as well as long-term planning and oversight to make sure that we're able to make the investments that we need in order to get that kind of visibility. And so I want to get sort of both your thoughts on that, or if you think there are other priorities beyond this, because it's a personal pressure point for me.
I've got some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I can respond to that, Andrew. I liked the way we had subcommittees last year. And the reason being is that all of us here have other lives outside the warrant committee. Many of us have jobs, or we have family obligations. And I think to have just one person, let's say, focus on police would be really burdensome. That's number one. So I liked having a partner, and Liz Dillon was my partner, and I liked working with her where we both met with the fire chief and the police chief. And we brought different perspectives together. So it wasn't just my perspective of what I thought the budgetary needs were for public safety. Liz contributed greatly to that, and the two of us were able to come up with, yeah, I think this is what we need. So I like the tag teaming thing, and I think by having not just an expert, because I wouldn't ever think that just because I met with someone or spent 6 months or a year with a particular part of town would make me an expert. I don't even consider myself an expert in Medicaid, and I've been working in that field for quite some time. So I like the investigatory partnership with someone else on the warrant committee, and I also think that brings about I hope, greater financial transparency, which is what I think Andrew is getting at. Is am I right and correct in that?
No, can I re-steer you
Yeah, of
on
course,
that?
yeah.
And it is, I think, when I think about what Nick Milano,
Mm-hmm.
the town administrator, had told us about the accounting system,
Yes.
was that there is a lack of reporting, and they know there are more upgrades to the system that can implement, but they don't have plans or the resources to invest in that. And to me, as I mentioned last year, you have to have a plan. Even if you're in an override situation, you have to either have a plan to invest or invest a little over time. Otherwise, this problem perpetuates itself. So that's one problem that I saw. And then taking a step back further, it is in a for-profit entity. Somebody would, on a C-level, would say the same thing and say, hey, we need a broader strategy on IT. We need a broader strategy on protecting citizens' data. We need a strategy on investing in internal systems so that when we meet or when town departments start articulating needs, they're able to not only present in a sophisticated manner, they're able to pull up data real time to be able to answer questions and this back and forth. And so the thing I did not see last year was any motivation to do that. And I don't see in the town governance structure the ability to have that kind of leadership. And so the question I'm really asking is, how, if any way, do you intend to tackle that problem?
I think can I just answer that really quick? I mean, having been a public sector employee for a long time, I think it's very difficult to do that. I mean, I think your analysis is coming from the private sector, where you have a corporation, you're for profit, you have stakeholders, you have stockholders, you have various degrees of revenue. Whereas states and towns, I mean, right now we're facing enormous amounts of federal cuts across the board. Okay, that's number one. And we're nonprofit. I mean, government inherently is not for profit. That's number one. So you can't forecast the revenue you're going to bring in because you're so dependent on the state budget. Okay, the federal budget contributing to the state budget, which is not a lot right now, and then the states funneling into town government, municipalities, and then there's taxes involved. There's a whole variety of factors where I think it's really difficult to forecast because we're not profit driven. You know, we're a municipality. I mean, the Commonwealth is not profit. I mean, you do the lottery is an aspect.
Plus,
of it.
you want more again.
It's just,
and it's really, I'm not talking about
taxes, permits.
I'm talking about the infrastructure we need to get the visibility and information we need as a town and as a warrant committee in order to make these decisions, because we're relatively speaking running on antiquated systems. So that to me,
I don't know if the warrant committee can completely restructure and have such a. I mean, that's I wouldn't say a global issue, but a town-wide issue, and I'm not sure if that's the role.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll defer to Jay.
I'll say, at first I thought you were talking in general,
Right.
but you are talking about specific. For us to make financial decisions, we need good reports from accounting.
Yeah.
I'm talking about two separate things.
Okay.
That and
Yeah. So I would say, to a certain extent, to echo what Macy said, I would say we're not the executive of the town. I'm not trying to dodge responsibility, but the executives of the town are the town administrator and the select board. So they'd have a significant role to play in like long-term planning. Do we want the accounting group to have another software like that? Where there's some overlap is like that would be a capital expense. There's the capital committee, which I think has people who serve on it for even longer than the warrant committee, and they make a lot of decisions. Now we can come in with a heavy hand, and when the budget is in front of us, say, no, capital committee, we're not going to spend $1 million on a fire truck. We're insisting you spend $1 million on accounting system. It's probably not the best way to go. But so there's some overlap between you want the executive branch, I'll call it, to take the leadership, but maybe we could push them. I think a couple ways that we could do better this year. And again, whether you're talking about specifically accounting system or in general, things that I've seen frustrate me for the past previous 3 years is, I think doing the work early, like laying a foundation in the fall, I think will help us. Because I mean, every year we've met here in February and March, and we've said, man, I really wish we were doing X instead of Y, but there's just no time to make those changes in the budget in a responsible way. Like, maybe it's, I really wish we were spending $1 million in accounting system. When we're in March and the warrant's going into print in 2 weeks, we can't make that happen. If we meet in November and people come back, the subject matter experts come back and say, we could really benefit from a new accounting system, we can say, great, let's lay the foundation. Let's have our representative to the capital committee say that. Let's have, we should somehow communicate that to the select board that that's what we want. That otherwise, I feel like we've been working on the budget too late every year I've been here. The other thing, which is a possibility, is this new committee, which is a budget interaction committee between the select board and the warrant committee and the school committee and I believe the planning board. The committee has not even formed yet, and I don't know exactly what it will do, but there's a possibility for that. For like we're saying, if we see we need a new accounting system, that's and also in general, like the long-term planning. This new committee they're talking about is supposed to be long-term financial planning. It doesn't even exist yet. So maybe we could guide it into something positive there.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, you had more?
One other question. You talked about coming up with a policy for stabilization funds.
Yes.
Isn't that decided by the select board?
That's it. Maybe. When I've talked to people about this, some people say that's the select board's job. Some people say, no, that's our job. What I would say is if it's the select board's job, they haven't set a policy for the past. And by policy, I don't mean this year we're going to take out $1 million. I mean a policy. Like every year we're going to try to put in this much and take out this much. If the select board wants to do it, they haven't done it in about 10 years, maybe more. So I would say it's our job. If we think it's our job, we can put a policy together. And if the select board has a better idea, we're open to hear it. But nobody's done this. And sorry.
I'm sorry, but money goes into the stabilization fund based upon income less expenses, usually. And don't they, it just stays there until the select board makes a decision on it. Like when things come up, like they need a new school thing. So, there were a number of a new fire truck or something that's necessary. Mm-hmm. That's when they make that call. I don't understand. Isn't it more
that's
on you don't know what's going to happen in 5 years.
Yeah. So let's keep in mind we're talking about this. Which fund we're talking about? So there's the general stabilization. So
not the school one. That's just
School stabilization.
Yeah. None of this is the the one that's under our control that we just approved $1 million from. None of that's this. There's the general stabilization fund, which is like do not break glass except in case of emergency. That I think we'll put some in every year, decide how much we should have in there. There's the new operating budget stabilization fund. The goal of that fund is to get us through, if our expenses are going up 3.5% per year and our income's going up 2.5% per year, that's the cushion to get us through to the next 5 years before we need another override. And I don't want it just to be, Nick looks at it every year and decides how much we need to take out. There should be some formula of, okay, are we going to put more in? And if so, how do we take it out? Or even more specifically, there's a new special education stabilization fund, which has 0 in it. So maybe we could say, something along the lines of, every year when we have free cash, let's take the first $2 million and we use the first $2 million for capital, and after that, we'll split it among these funds, something like that. Well, a special education stabilization fund, how much should they take out? Well, we know that the schools every year could say we have expensive special education costs, so they could take out however much they want. It'd be much better to have a policy like, we expect special education costs to go up 4% a year. If they go up more than 4% per year, then that's the amount you can take out. There's also a road stabilization fund, which was established 7 or 8 years ago. It's never been used. I don't know except for the title, I don't know what it's for. But what if we said, every year we'll put a certain amount of free cash into the road stabilization fund, and every year we'll spend $500,000 on it. Some years we put in more, some years we put in less, but we have the same amount coming out. Again, I don't necessarily have the answers, but I think I have the questions. That's the kind of
I just
questions.
want to know what you meant by that. Okay.
Ron Cia has his hand up.
Ron does have his hand up. Ron, first, Ron, I do want to ask you, were you sworn in before this meeting?
Not this year.
I can't hear you, Ron.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have not been sworn in this year.
Okay. You will not be able to vote tonight.
But you can ask a question.
Yeah, unless there's a general disagreement, I think it'd be perfectly fine for you to ask a question. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sure. Well, thanks to both of you for being willing to be considered for the chair. I think you're both great, very qualified, and very eloquent in your explanations. One question I had, how do you see the Warrants Committee's role working with the select board and then also with the advisory role to town meeting? If you could talk in a couple minutes on those two, that'd be great. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. As far as working with the select board, I certainly would like to set up weekly calls with the select board chair just to get a pulse of what's going on. I'd like to have them in here to explain their articles. One thing I'd like to see different, I don't want to throw shade, but we have in the past couple of years gotten some articles, the select board votes, yes, this should be on the warrant. And then they come to us and it's just not ready for prime time. It's just not even written correctly. So I'd like to sort of encourage them in a very polite way, take a pretty close look at these things that you're voting to put on the warrant. Even if we still have some more investigation to do, at least make sure that they're basically ready to go on the warrant. So that's one thing I'd say with the select board. And as far as with town meeting, I think in previous years, I've seen the warrant committee chair be the main person to speak to most articles on town meeting. And when a person from town meeting has a question, the warrant committee chair is the number one person to answer those questions. So I see it as we make decisions, we make a recommendation, we should be prepared to explain that recommendation. How do we come to that decision? Why do we think it's the right decision? Not necessarily do a presentation on every article, but do a presentation on any article that is involved. And I think we should, since everything town meeting votes on, they're voting on our recommendation. They can amend it, they can change it, they can vote it down, but they're voting on our recommendation. So we should be a point person for explaining what we did to town meeting. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Ron, to answer your question, very similar to Jay, I would have weekly calls with the select board and have a discussion about their articles. I think we all had the experience that a lot of the articles could have tightened up a bit, and I feel that that's my area of expertise when it comes to articles and reviewing legislation and any aspect of the law and what would hold muster in court. So I think I would be very beneficial if I were chair to work closely with the select board in doing so. I believe that I demonstrated the same way when the planning board came with their articles and had to send them back with a bunch of edits, areas that needed to tighten up. So I feel like that's my area of expertise. I also think that I would be able to represent the warrant committee professionally, directly, and succinctly at town meeting. And obviously I would gather all the recommendations and thoughts and contributions from the warrant committee and present them in a unified manner before town meeting. I've had the experience of doing that by arguing in a lot of cases in a lot of different level of appellate courts and the ability to handle questions being asked and being able to answer them quickly and correctly.
I have one question. As a new member, sounds like one of the big differences between the two visions that you have is a way in which the kind of, individual subcommittees go off and get information and bring it back. And I like the idea of, collaboration. I think multiple inputs makes for better, kind of conclusions. I'm also, as a new member, really not fully aware of what I might have signed on for here in terms of the time commitment. So I like the idea of, kind of one person tackling different aspects of things. And so I don't know if you could speak to that, both of you, a little bit. And are you kind of wedded to your respective views of individuals versus teams? Or are you thinking that that's going to be something that the committee is going to work through together as we try to develop that view of working together going forward?
Okay, so I like the team aspect. I like working on teams. It makes me a better thinker, a warrant committee member, and anything that I work on. It makes me a better team member because I value the perspectives of my team. I don't know everything, and I never will, but I learn a lot. And like I said, the time commitment involved here is quite significant. And when you're working with a team, you can tag team and just say, look, I have a commitment tonight. Can you cover this? We can do it together. It's just, I have a team approach in my management style, and really in every aspect of my life down to my family. It's a team because it just makes the product stronger at the end. So I am wedded to that. I just don't think that we'll be able to be experts just by going in individually and meeting with particular departments. Even as an attorney, you can send me into a legal department and say, you're going to be an expert. No. I sometimes want a layperson's view because it may sound clear to me, but it needs to be clear to the public. So I think that's really important. So I do like the team approach in every aspect of everything I do. And it would be the same here if I were to be elected chair.
Okay. I'll say my favorite part about subcommittees in the past couple of years is getting to work one-on-one with my peers. Brian and I were on a subcommittee. Brian and Andrew, am I crazy? Yeah. And I loved working with them. That was the best part. Some downsides, though, to it were, well, one, if you read the open meeting law pretty strictly, every time the subcommittee meets, that's an open meeting that has to be posted. It has to be posted 48 hours in advance. Not everyone sticks to that strictly. Certainly my first year, I did stick to that strictly, and it was maddening because if you or I are in our subcommittee and we want to meet at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, have a Zoom call. Okay, we got to get that posted on Monday. Okay, not the end of the world. And then let's say, oh, I can't make it at 8. Can you make it at 9 p.m.? Well, no, because we had it posted for 8. And you can't just make a change at the last minute. It's technically 48 hours, but really it's 3 days notice before you can change a meeting. So if you're sticking with the open meeting law strictly, it's just unwieldy. Another thing is, I don't see the upside in that I've been on this for 3 years. Let's talk about schools, for example. We've had a school subcommittee for all 3 years that had 4 or more people on it. Not once did the school subcommittee come back to us and say, hey, here's all the work we did and here's everything we learned. So would that be better or worse with 1 person or 4 people? I don't know, but I haven't seen the upside to having more people. And so there's also the question of divided responsibility. If there are 4 people on the school subcommittee, maybe they all look at each other and say, I thought you were doing it. If there's 1 person, we know who's supposed to do it. So that's my thoughts.
I also think that's enforced by the chair to require subcommittees to report. So I think as chair, I would designate time on the agenda for weekly or whenever we meet reporting. So I think that's incumbent on the chair to do. So.
Are these automatically on?
Yeah.
Oh.
But you want to get it fairly close
to
pick up your
So, being new, like Nick, I'm seeing a lot of different responsibilities on here. And if we team up, we're going to have to do more of them than if we were single entities. So I just want to hear from the two of you. How many of these subcommittees you were on, and what kind of time did it take you?
So I can go first. So last year I was assigned police, fire, and other public safety. And it did not evoke the public meeting law because there were meetings and it was part of the investigatory purpose of the warrant committee. So it's not subjected to the open meeting law. We went and met with fire chief to discuss this budget, obtain it, and just to learn more about what their needs are. And it didn't require, Liz Dillon and I were both on this subcommittee together, and it was emails, which is public record. So we had questions, we would ask the fire police chief. So those are obviously subject to FOIA, which is Public Records Information Act. And if anyone wanted to see them, they would be available. And it was an investigatory role, which is to understand their budget, their needs, and then to present it at the Warrant Committee. We asked both the fire chief and the police chief came and talked about their needs and what their budgetary items entailed. So, like I said, I remember one meeting I couldn't make it because I had to work late, so Liz covered, and then there was one meeting that Liz couldn't make it and she covered. But then we talked about it together, what we learned, and compare notes. I thought it was very effective, and it was just the two of us, and I know other people had other subcommittees, and I just thought it was very effective, as opposed to having one person. Like I said, I spent years, 2 decades in law enforcement. I would never ever think that I know so much about what the police needs are. I understand what they are, but it's a lot, their needs and things that I didn't think about because they pertain just to this town. Like cameras, I knew we had cameras, but I didn't know there was certain software that was needed. So I learned a lot from that, and I like the team approach versus, like I said, the individual approach, and then professing that I'm an expert, which I would never qualify myself as in any area, not even in parenting, with 2 children who are now young adults. So not even close.
Hey, your question was what I'd worked on. So for all 3 years, I worked on general government, which is sort of a catch-all. It includes most of the things that happen in town hall. It includes employee benefits, which is my professional background. It includes quite a few things that are broken out into different lines on this list. What was your question about how much time it took? I guess it sort of felt like it was as much time as we wanted to put in because nobody was going to ask anything of us. Like the property and casualty insurance, I had a lot of questions. Some of them I got answered, some of them I didn't, but the Warrant Committee never asked us, hey, tell us more about the property and casualty insurance line. So it sort of felt a little frustrating in that sense. Also, you say this is a long list, which it is. This list covers things that the Warrant Committee hasn't looked at in the past few years. Like the revenue side, all these revenue items, there was nobody on the Warrant Committee assigned to, hey, be the expert on the revenue item, to at least know what's going on with it, if not, push back and ask questions. Stabilization funds, nobody, some of them are new, but even those that weren't new, nobody looked into those. So I've added things that I think could benefit bonds. We just accept what the town treasurer says. Okay, here are the bonds, here are the costs. We say, okay. I'd like somebody to be an expert on that. Whether it's an actionable item or not, I want somebody in the Warrant Committee to have a really good sense of what our bonds are. So this is a long list. It's longer than the things we've looked at before. A lot of them are easy. A lot of them are, what's the law budget? It's the same as last year. Okay, check, move on. But I want to make a thorough list.
Gotcha, thanks.
Yes.
Can I just ask how you put this list together, Jay?
Out of my head.
Okay.
I mean, the departments, it's everything that's on the departments are everything that's on the warrant every year, and then things like bonds and capital are on the warrant every year, insurance, and then I just started thinking, like, what have we not looked at in the past that we should?
Okay, thanks.
I'll just add, there are a lot more things on this than we added at. Jay's right. There's a lot more items on this than we had last year.
Yeah,
That's what was the difference.
I guess I was just looking for an idea of how many different subcommittee responsibilities people on the Warrant Committee generally had. Because it would help me make my decision about the single person or working as part of a collective.
Some of these things like insurance, unemployment, a lot of these things are fixed costs. And it was one group, our group just went through it. It was honestly, it was a 2-hour in the afternoon, but 3 of us went through it, right?
Like some departments
Some,
are huge.
a lot of these are very quick and easy.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it because it's fixed,
School's huge. IT small.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I think
Relatively
big. Well, like I said, the public safety aspect, it was great working with Liz because when she was unavailable, I could cover, and then we were able to trade notes. And if I had any follow-up questions, I would just email the fire or police chief to follow up. And she was on emails, so it really was a group effort, and I enjoyed that part. And again, I was new to the warrant committee, so it was great to meet Liz and just to have someone to get to know. So I like that part as a new person. And I think even just being here this year, again, I would feel the same way. To get to know someone new and work with someone new and get to know them. Because everyone brings something different to the table as a team.
I'll give you my opinion. I do think teams work, and like that was probably one of the first things I did when I got my MBA. That's one of the first things they taught us. Like teams do come up with better decisions. They do a test actually, but teams generally do come up with better decisions than individual people do. And I do, just a point, is I do disagree with Jay on something on the school committee, is that I think there were 4 people on the committee, and you were on the committee, but they wrote a really good summary in the warrant in April, the warrant that we did in April, a really good summary that the school committee is using to make changes, because they all agreed on the school committee. They said, we didn't do a good job on budgeting last year. They were very open about that, and they said that. And they came up with a good solution. Like they came up, I thought it was one of the better things written in the warrant.
But I will say that to this day, I don't know if there were technically 4 or 5 of us on that committee. And we never actually got together and talked. And there was definitely sort of that like dispersion of responsibility thing. I felt like, especially because Lori was such an expert. She'd been there so long. She attended all the meetings that weren't even the meetings we needed to attend. So it was like, I can see the benefit of it. Like if I just knew it was me, it was all on me. Okay, I got to go to all the meetings. I got to meet with Katie Blake. I got to this, I got to that. But it was sort of like, oh yeah, I think Lori's meeting with Katie, and then so pros and cons. But I also think, to Macy's point, that is part of the chair's job, is to step in and make sure that like if it's a subcommittee setup, the subcommittees are meeting and communicating and coming back and reporting.
Yeah, I should rephrase. I think my opinion is it's a mix. Some of them could be one person. A chunk of these should be more than one person. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
That is bare.
And I think that works itself out in
Yeah, it
committees
does.
also.
Yeah.
Because some people naturally, just to be nimble, took on in general business. I had a conversation with IT, and so there are other issues that are bigger bears that I think it requires the full team. But
Okay. Are there more questions? Okay. Seeing there are no questions, it sounds like we're ready to proceed to a vote. Ron, as we said, you weren't sworn in, so you're not able to vote. Karen, would you like to take a roll call vote?
are we able to get his input?
Say again?
Can we a non-binding vote from Ron? I'm just curious.
We'll abstain, Andrew.
Yeah. Okay. Very
That's right.
very neutral response.
Abstain, he emphasized that.
I'm happy to take a vote. Can I just, when I call your name, you're gonna say the name of the person who you would like to elect, is that correct?
Yes.
And, I'm going to probably call the names of people that aren't there because I don't know who everyone is yet, so I am gonna apologize for that. Is Nicole there?
Nicole is not here.
Okay, how about Elaine?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Jay.
Jamesley?
Jay.
Lorraine?
Jay.
Grace? Excuse me.
Grace is not here.
Okay, Jay?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, Andrew?
Macy.
Macy?
I should abstain.
Julia?
Jay.
Brian?
Macy.
Lee Michael?
Lee Michael's not here.
Thank you. Ron, I understand abstention?
He can't vote.
Ron can't vote.
Okay. Is Jimmy there?
Jimmy is not here.
Okay, Nicholas?
Macy.
And Cecile?
Okay.
So I have 5 for Jay, 3 for Macy, and 3 abstentions.
Okay. I would like to thank you for the responsibility you've given me and give respect to my colleague Macy. I think, as many people said, it would have been good either way. But there we go. The next thing on our agenda is the election of the secretary. Now, last year when this came up, somebody around the table said, what does the secretary do? And everybody looked at, yeah, okay, great. And everybody looked at each other and said, we're not sure. Well, I would like to propose what I think the secretary could do. Am I sharing? Yes, okay. Can I make a slideshow? It's only one slide, but it'll look prettier. I'll leave it as that, too bad. What are the official duties of the secretary? I don't know. What duties do I think the secretary should do? One is manage the minutes. We are, by the open meeting law, we're supposed to approve minutes within 30 days. I believe last month we approved some minutes from 2023. So let's say we're behind. I would like the secretary to take charge of that. I'd like the secretary to call roll and take votes. What if the chair is absent? I believe for the past 3 years, I've never seen a chair be absent. But, you know, I'd like the opportunity to be absent once in a while. So whoever the secretary is will be perfectly capable of running the meeting. Sometimes we have confusing votes. Like if there's a motion to vote no, and everybody says, wait, so does no mean yes and yes mean no? I'm getting off topic a little bit, but I think there's a good way for the secretary to communicate what people are voting for. Warrant comments. You know, we need to write the comments for the warrant. Some of you who are new don't know what I'm talking about, but let's just say I'd like the secretary to assign those. And then review the warrant comments. Now, this, as with most things, can be delegated as long as it gets done. And on the days of town meeting. Before town meeting starts at 7:30. At 6:30, we meet downstairs in the basement. Feels familiar, but it's the basement of the school, and has a meeting. And our beloved clerk, Karen, stays with us for half an hour and then runs upstairs because she helps run the town meeting. I'd rather say, Karen, you've got that part of the night off. The secretary will serve as the clerk during the pre-town meeting meetings. And then on the floor of town meeting, when the chair, I guess I can say that's me, is preparing, getting up, speaking, answering questions, the secretary runs the meeting. Now, you might ask yourself, that's a lot of duties. Is there someone who is ready, willing, and able to do these duties? I would like to say that Brian and I are of a like mind, because a few days ago, I reached out to one of my more respected colleagues, Macy Lee, and asked if she would be willing to serve as secretary. Now, I do want to repeat something that I said a little while ago. My opinion as chair is no more valid than your opinion. I am the committee decides the secretary, not me. All I am saying is that I did reach out to Macy several days ago, and Macy said they were willing to do the job of secretary. So that is all I will say. And now I've had my say, and I'll open the floor for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Macy Lee.
Second.
I was really torn in my vote.
Oh,
and
no,
so
you didn't.
Oh, really?
Well,
And so I'm a new member. It's exactly what Andrew said.
last year.
So I think that a lot of stuff that you said would make you a good person to fill in if the chair
Thank
isn't
you.
able to do it.
Thank you very much.
Jay, what happens if the chair is...
Dies?
That is not what I said.
Say something like that.
Sorry.
Incapacitated or unwilling to serve in their capacity.
Guys, it's getting dark.
Is it revote? or is it?
I assume.
Or-
I don't think it's like vice president.
It's not a
automatically
vice-
go
vice
up.
pre-
I think it's,
Okay.
I assume it's some sort of revote.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's morbid.
So that is.
Are you an actuary?
It's intangible. What are you planning?
Okay, we have had a motion. Do we have a second to that motion? Yes, okay. Are there any other, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm doing a great job as chair so far. Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing no other nominations. Macy, you have the opportunity to speak.
Don't do it.
Everything that I said before,
Don't do it. Don't do it.
because it's
If you
9
could
o'clock.
say it all again, that'd be great.
No, I would.
Ditto.
Ditto, repeat.
Read my speech.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian. We should see. I'm humbled. Thank you, Elaine.
Okay.
And Jay. And Brian.
Okay. So, sorry, were you going to say something? Okay. Karen, can you call for a vote? I guess the motion is for Macy to be secretary, so I guess it's a yes or no vote.
Okay, Elaine,
Yes.
Kingsley,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Jay,
I will not abstain from this vote. I will vote yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Macy,
Abstain.
Julia,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nicholas,
Yes.
and Cecile.
Yes.
Unanimous approval.
Okay, great. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
Next on the agenda, discussion of this year's schedule and tasks. I want to talk about schedule. I want to hand out something regarding my thoughts on the schedule for the year. It starts with a story which may be true, may be false, but the internet seems to think it's true, or at least if it's not true, it's a good story. That's in 1911, there were two groups going to the South Pole. One from Norway, one from England. The one from Norway, good weather, bad weather, no matter what, they went 20 miles a day. They reached the South Pole first ones to ever make it, and they all survived. The ones from England, if it was good weather, they would go as far as they could. 40 miles, 60 miles a day if it was good weather. If it was bad weather, they hunkered down. They reached the South Pole second, and they all died. So I'm going to lay out a plan for the annual schedule, and you might look at this schedule and say, hey, Mr. Chair, it looks like some months like November and December, we're not very busy. Maybe we could just not meet those months. I think it's going to pay off if we do. The next slide. Sorry, Ron, you miss out. You don't. Oh, wait. Do I have the slides? I do have the slides. Boy, y'all voted. Yeah, this is what your campaign should have been. No slides, Macy. You would have won.
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Now, as the newly elected secretary. So, and this is the attorney coming out. So you're passing out these items, and this consists of 4 pages. Is this part of the record? Is this part of the minutes? Or do you want to mark them as exhibits, or how do you want to keep them as part of the record in case there's public inquiry?
I'll give a partial response to that. That is, anything that is passed out at the meetings is part of the public record.
Okay.
And can, and isn't always, but probably should be.
No, it should be.
We have a warrant committee webpage on the town
Right.
webpage and should be shared there.
So do you want me to mark them as exhibits?
Now you're getting
or-
out of my area of expertise.
Okay, I will mark them then,
Okay.
because I think it's easier that way.
Okay.
Okay, this is campaign stuff.
I'll share this entirely for Ron. I guess for all our fans watching at home also. There's the South Pole, blah, blah, blah. I've got a plan for the year. And 2 similar quotes. One is from the Prussian General Helmuth von Moltke the Elder, who said, "No plan survives contact with the enemy." It was phrased a little more eloquently by Mike Tyson, who says, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." I've got a plan for what we're going to do for the next 12 months. It's better to have a plan not to have a plan. If the state comes to us in February and says, you're getting $10 million less than we thought you're going to get, our plan goes out the window. But let's see what we can do. I don't, I think this is something to look at on your own time. I think this month we should assign roles. So maybe I lied. Next month, so at the beginning of August, the select board is expected to give us, sorry, stepping back a bit. There's going to be a town meeting on October 27th of this year. At the beginning of August, the select board should be giving us their warrant articles that they expect us to consider during.
27th or 28th? It says 28th, you said 27th.
Oh, well, it's my daughter's 18th birthday, so I know it's the 27th, so I wrote it wrong. 27th. It's that Monday. I've already apologized to her in advance. So the select board should be giving us warrant articles in early August, so we can start discussing those in August. Also start doing some pre-work for the summit if we're going to be deciding the policies of how we want this to run, and also financial policies that start fleshing some of those out. In September, when I looked at this schedule and I thought, oh, if the warrant goes to the printer in early October, it's really tempting to say let's have our summit in October, but I didn't want to give in to that temptation. I'd like to have that early, set the tone for the year. And then also in September, discuss the fall town meeting articles and finalize our recommendations for them. It goes to the printer the first week of October. And so between the time it goes to printer and the time of town meeting, we, experienced warrant committee members know things come up, but ideally we won't have much to do then, so we can work on what are we going to present to town meeting? What did we decide, and how can we present it the best? And then that gives us November and December to start coming back. During this August, September, October, also all of you have had individual assignments. You've gone out, you've met with the DPW director, you've met with the cemetery board of trustees, whoever you're meeting with. Start coming back in November, December and presenting, here are the issues with the cemetery budget, here are the issues with the DPW budget. So we start laying a good foundation for the budget in November and December. And then, then we're getting so far. So the budgets, the departments give their budget requests to Mr. Milano in December. Mr. Milano usually puts that into a whole budget proposal in January. And that's when we'll be working with, that's when we'll be, at that point, we'll be doing warrant committee stuff. We'll be finalizing our recommendations on the budget and the non-budget articles for town meeting. So one other thing I want to say about schedule, or ask about schedule, meeting times. The past 3 years at least, we've met Monday evenings. It seems to be a good night. The select board meets on Tuesdays, the school committee meets on Wednesdays, the planning board meets on Thursdays. Most of these are every other week, so we're not necessarily precluded from meeting another day. But I just assume stick with Monday unless there's a general outcry for another day. So it can be a general outcry right now. You can contact me later. Either way, otherwise we're going to stick with Monday. And I'd like to plan with the slow and steady wins the race. I'd like to plan for meetings every 2 weeks, including over the summer. All meetings you can participate by Zoom. So during the summer, I know it's sometimes hard to get people here. There's always a Zoom option. What else? The other things on the agenda are sort of what we already talked about.
So 2 weeks from today?
2 weeks from today. Yes.
Can I ask a question on your schedule?
Sure.
So on the 2026 side, is this schedule implying there's going to be another town meeting before May like there was this year?
It's not.
Okay.
So the early February, the warrant is closed. What the warrant is closed means, and it's sort of squishy, but it means the select board knows all the warrant articles that are going to be on the May town meeting, and there will be no more except that there always are, and they always reopen it. But
Okay.
we should know most of the articles that are going to be on the May town meeting by early February.
Thank you.
And do you stick on that every 2 weeks, or do you sometimes have conflicts and are going to go every week or every 3 weeks?
In the past, it has not been a regular every 2 weeks. In the past, it has been more willy-nilly. So
Okay.
I'd like to stick with the every 2 weeks. I mean, again, if there's a general uprising that says, no, that's July 4th. It won't be July 4th. No, that's a really bad day. That's Halloween. We're not going to meet on Halloween. We can be flexible.
Okay.
We can certainly be flexible, but I'd like
I'm just
to.
thinking about putting it in my calendar and how locked in I can make it.
Well, as we get closer, I mean, we've had 3 meetings in a week.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Town meeting, yeah.
More.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what, again, no plan survives contact with the enemy. I'm hoping to not do that. I'm hoping we can do enough in the fall to be in really good shape in the spring. Hope is a bad word, but I just said it.
Do you think we can get like the full, like the plan for at least the next 6 months or something like that, so we put it on our calendars and then change it for holidays and all that stuff, you know?
Sure. I mean, I think the answer is every 2 weeks. I mean, I sort of laid out.
Yeah, you gonna do the holidays too?
Well, okay, I'll put something better together.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
You know, like,
yeah,
set a
okay.
plan.
Yeah,
I'm not saying,
yeah. Okay.
just so we can throw it.
I'll stop sharing my screen.
So the next meeting is going to be July 28th.
Yes.
So-
Okay. Okay. The next thing on the agenda, and I sent an email out to partially explain what this is about. Interim appointments to the Milton Budget Coordination Committee. 2 questions you might have. 1, what's the Milton Budget Coordination Committee? And 2, why interim? Budget Coordination Committee, I mentioned earlier, that's the brand new committee between the Select Board, School Committee, Planning Board, and us. And it's to do multiple things. 1 is to open lines of communication between the boards. You know, the Select Board really said, we want to talk to the School Committee back and forth officially. So that's one thing. And also to do long-term budget planning. And also, I think we'll just sort of see where it goes. Now, the Select Board and the Planning Board have already selected their representatives, and the School Committee will do so soon. So I don't want to delay in choosing a presence from the Warrant Committee to be on there. I also recognize this is our first meeting. Maybe it's a little knee-jerk reaction to elect people. That's why I said in the agenda, interim appointments. I didn't know if we'd be ready to choose permanent representatives, and at this point, that's what's on the agenda, so that's what we should do. Andrew, yes.
I'd like to nominate the 2 newly elected folks to be interim representatives.
Okay.
Say that again?
I'd like to nominate the 2 newly elected
Okay.
leaders as
Can
interim,
I?
or unless anybody else is,
You want to do a motion to nominate first? And then open up
unless
for
you
nomination?
like.
I think you'd be great on it.
Yeah, can we put a pen in this for just a minute? I appreciate the thought. I do
Okay.
appreciate it. I want to put a pen in it because the other smaller groups seem to just look around the table and say, who wants to do it? And they come to some sort of communal hive mind. So I eventually want a motion for 2 people. I would sort of like a little bit of discussion, like to see who would like to do it, who is inclined to do it.
As interim?
We're voting on interim now because
Yeah, I think we should, because we don't have a full body here. I'd prefer to see everyone
okay.
vote.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
It seems as though we skipped right over number 5 on the agenda of introducing ourselves to each other.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
wondering if it might be helpful to have an idea of people's backgrounds and things like that before we.
Thank you. I did skip that. For the people at home, we had our open meeting began in the gazebo where we had informal chit chats for about half an hour. But you're right. You know, we may not even know what the professional backgrounds of everyone in this room are, and certainly the people watching at home don't. So I'll start. Briefly, I told you a little bit about myself. My professional background, I may have de-emphasized. I worked as an actuary for 15 years. I'm still a fully credentialed actuary. What that meant was I worked with employee benefits, including mostly retirement plans, retiree medical plans, dabbled a little bit in healthcare plans. And so what that means for my role in the town is I've been very involved in meetings with Mr. Milano, Ms. Dexter, the town financial director, about what should our policy be for retiree medical plans, what should our policy be for the pension plans, what should our policy be for healthcare plans. I'm sorry, you will all hear more from me about employee benefits than you want to hear. And now I work at Eversource, where I do a combination of policy and math work. I am not, like our secretary, I am not a lawyer, but I tell everyone my job is I'm not a lawyer, but I pretend to be because I work with policy. Let's go this way around the table. I think we've.
Okay, I'm going to press rewind.
Okay.
Ditto. And then move it to Andrew.
I'm operations executive, mainly IT focused. However, I've managed HR, insurance, vendors. I've managed benefits. I've managed commercial property and casualty, executive liability insurance, and basically keep the lights on for other folks to be working. Last 14 years, I was with the Blue Hub Capital, which is a nonprofit financial institution. Currently serving as a technology advisory board member for Pershing Ventures. And most of my work is basically spent on business process optimization, innovation, and business transformation work.
Thanks. Brian McGuire. I've lived in Milton for 42 years. 40 years actually. I've lived in East Milton for 30 of those. I retired a year and a half ago upon my company being sold. I was vice president of operations for what was fifth largest beer distributor in the country. And we had up to 21 divisions. I worked 30 years. I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought. I am going to put it in for the budget committee. I think I would be good on it. I want to talk to you about why, but I don't need to do it right now in the introductions. So anyone?
Lorraine Dewey. This is my third time on the Warrant Committee. Different committees each time I was on it. I've lived in Milton for 30 years. My background is clinically as a physical therapist, which I did a number of years. And then I went on to different levels of management in healthcare and IT healthcare. And I'm currently an administrator for a health center, Mass General Health Center, where I have policies, budgets, a lot of people under my name, day-to-day stuff, pretty much committees, a whole bunch of different things. So.
My name is James Lee. For the past 20 years, I've worked in IT service management. Basically, the responsibilities have gone from day-to-day desktop support all the way through to managing transition from on-premise to cloud infrastructure. That's been my 9 to 5 day-to-day. I'm also a real estate investor, gone pretty much nationwide at this point. So look, I'm also a landlord, which is not as fun as being a real estate investor. So, so I kind of do the handyman stuff and just to kind of make sure I understand and what the costs are and how to do all the different work that I do. For this, I've been in town for about 12 years now, and so I've been poking and saying I participate a little bit more in town functions, and then now getting serious about it, and so that's why I'm here.
I'm Cecilia Yang. I'm pretty new to town. I've been here 3 years now. I am a software engineer. I've been a software engineer for 9 years, and before that I was a student. I have been interested in local like town government. I became a citizen like fairly recently, like 3 years ago. So I'm just like trying to jump in now that I can vote and I can be involved. Excited to work with you all.
I'm Elaine Craighead. I have been a town meeting member for about 15 years now. I was also a member of the school committee for 6 years. During those 6 years, I chaired the finance committee for 5 years. So I've been involved in putting that school budget together a number of times. So yes, it's complicated. It's big. Before that, I served on the Milton Cultural Council. I served with Lorraine on Capital Improvement Planning Committee for a couple of years. And I also was involved in negotiating contracts with the teachers union as part of my responsibilities on the school committee. I've actually negotiated contracts on both sides of the table. I'm an associate dean at Mass Maritime Academy, and I was a faculty member there before being promoted to my current role. That's it.
So I'm Nick Tagney. I grew up in Milton, and then my wife and I bought our first house here 27 years ago. So I've been here a long time. I was in the town meeting for about 17 years, and I was a member of the Milton Girls Softball Board of Directors, I guess, for about 12 years. I work at an investment management company in Boston. I've been there for 35 years. I'm involved on the product team. So we do a lot of coordination between the distribution and sales team and the investment folks that manage all the different investment strategies. And we're involved in helping support those strategies in the marketplace, work with the marketing team to tell the stories, do design of new strategies, that kind of stuff. So I think that's it about me.
My name's Julia Maxwell. I've lived in Milton for 4 years now. I live in Precinct 1 with my husband and my 6 and 4-year-old boys. I'm a Precinct 1 town meeting member, and my background is in public health in low and middle income countries, mostly in the program and project management space. So I say I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I've done a little bit of everything. And I currently work as a director managing a program that does event-based surveillance, which is like pandemic threat detection.
Ron, are you with us?
Yep, still here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. My name is Ron Sia. I hope to meet all of you in person soon. I've been a resident of Milton since 2009. My wife and I have 3 kids. 2 are in 2 are in high school. 1's in middle school. They all go to Milton Public. We live in Central Ave, so I'm a Precinct 3 town meeting member for I think 4 or 5 years now, and this is my 3rd year on the Warrant Committee. Outside of Warrant Committee, when I do find time, I have a job. I work as a corporate in-house attorney, focusing on technology law and risk management.
So that's the introductions. So should we go back? I think we were going to discuss who has interest or inclination to be on the Budget Coordination Committee. And Brian, did you want to say?
I do. I'd like to be on it.
Okay.
And I think that as much as possible, we should try to avoid interim, because I think having continuity is good. I'll tell you a bit about my background. I was primarily an accountant. I have got an MBA. I worked for the same company for 40 years. When I started working for the company, it was 2 divisions, and there were 100 people that worked for the company. And we were up to 21 divisions, and 2,000 people worked for the company after 40 years. It was pretty big. The company was sold, $1 billion company. We grew a lot. We were very fiscally responsible. I was 30 years as a senior vice president of the company. And this might be depressing, but I figured this out, that I actually have been part of 2,000 budget meetings in that range, approximately, which is a choker. I think, oh, it makes me want to cry. So I've crunched a lot of numbers. I've looked at a lot of financial statements. I did a lot with the company. When we started, we didn't even have computers, believe it or not, if you can imagine. So like a lot of the things that we did, I helped develop or had ideas. Like we had capital utilization. I got frustrated with some stuff at the last warrant meeting because I felt like we were buying things that people weren't really sure, like if we needed them or not. But it was kind of late, like Jay said, it was late in the game, so we couldn't really check it. But I was involved with setting up utilization spreadsheets, things like that. There were so many different things that we came up with to measure costs and the needs for different things in the budget. I could tell you a lot of different things I did, but capital expenditures, budgeting, hiring, development of managers. I negotiated union contracts. I had, in the last few years, there's some major changes we made. I set up some warehouse management systems that saved the company $2 million a year, which was huge. I established a sustainability committee for the company, which I think which is big. That'd be something that I really think this town should do. We had a goal of, it was called 20 by 25. and we had a goal of a 20% reduction in carbon emissions, electric usage, and waste by 2025. Unfortunately, we only had 3 years because the company was sold when I left. But within that 3 years, 3 out of the 5 years, we had already achieved 75% of our goals, which we were really proud of. I was really proud of that. And it was a $1.1 million annual savings to the company. And that's something like, you know, you have a sustainability program, you should be saving money. It doesn't cost you money to do that. It saves you money. And it's good for the environment. Other things, you know, we had like delivery logistics systems. I saved like $1 million with that. Emergency response plans. I headed the COVID response team. I worked with a lot of different areas, much more than that. But those were the big things. I think, yep.
Oh, sorry. I guess I was going to say, I was hoping maybe less than like everyone making a case. First, we get to see like, do we have 2 people interested? Do we have more than 2 people interested? If not, that solves
I think
that.
Andrew would be great on it too. I'll make that.
Is Andrew interested?
I would love to. The reason why I like the idea of interim, and by interim I mean like 2 weeks or whatever, is
okay.
No,
go on.
Is because we have 5 voting members not present today.
Okay.
And I would prefer that I get to know the other 5 members or the other 4 members and gauge their interest in their background, because there may be somebody that has an infinite amount of experience that is a no-brainer for me, and all else equal, I'd likely still vote for Brian anyway.
Okay.
But I think it would be appropriate to have the full body here before we make a vote on this, which is why the expeditious answer for me had been you two, but Brian has an interest and I think would be a fine candidate also. So there's, I think, there are many ways to skin this cat, but.
Can I make a motion to table this until the next meeting, the next time we meet?
Well, the reason I wanted to do something quick and something interim, I didn't love doing interim either, is because I don't know when this group is going to meet first, and I want us to have a presence there
and
when this group starts
We can
meeting.
vote again at the next meeting. I just, per Jay's comment, I think it would be good to have a pin in it before then, and like I'll nominate Brian as one of those 2.
Okay.
Okay. So I support what Andrew said, mainly because I'm gone for 2 weeks. So I'm not going to even be here for the 28th. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to miss that meeting. But I do think it's important to have a presence at this committee as soon as possible, so that we can get our feet wet and be able to report back to the Warrant Committee. So thank you for the nomination, but I'm going to excuse myself from it. And if I can make a motion to nominate someone, do you want to do that for interim? And then do that again later, could do a permanent vote later on?
I don't hear anyone else clamoring to speak up for themselves, so sure, Macy.
So I'm gonna do a motion to recuse myself of Andrew's nomination as one of the interim members of this committee. And in place of that, I moved to nominate Brian as the interim person along with you.
Okay, so your motion is that myself and Brian would be the interim members.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Let's go with what's working for now. So for now, Karen, can you call the roll? So it's a yes or no on Basie's motion for me and Brian to be the interim members.
Okay, Elaine,
Yes.
Jinsley,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Jay,
Abstain.
Andrew,
Yes.
Macy,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Brian.
Abstain.
Then we go to Nicholas
Yes.
and Cecile.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Great. The only thing left on our agenda was discussion of minutes. Before we get to that, I'd like to give a heads up of what I see for our next meeting 2 weeks from now. A couple things. One administrative thing. One of our members, who is not here right now, Jimmy Sternaris, I'm going to mess that up. There is an administrative difficulty. There's an administrative problem with getting him appointed to the Warrant Committee. That administrative difficulty has been cleared up. He is willing and able to serve now, but because he wasn't nominated by the 5th of July, technically we don't have 15 members, we have 14 members and an empty spot. When we have an empty spot, the process is not for the moderator to fill it, but for us as a group to fill it. So it wasn't on the agenda for us to discuss who should fill that, but that'll be something that we take up, I think, immediately upon the next meeting. First thing next meeting is to fill that spot. I think also the next meeting we want to discuss the roles. You know, I surprised you with this list today. It looks overwhelming. I'll sort of be poking, I'll be poking you in the next 2 weeks. Think about what you'd like to work on, what you wouldn't like to work on. I think we can have an open discussion of, what's the Board of Health? What is that? And we can help get towards figuring out who will do what role. Also the summit, the timing of the summit, we can have a discussion. Do we like the idea of a weekend day? That sounds, the more I say it, that sounds horrible, but maybe that's what we like, or like 2 weeknights in a row, something like that. And also as a reminder, the next meeting we have is the last meeting we will have before we get warrant articles from the select board. So that's why I want to clear up some of this administrative internal stuff, because then we'll be running with warrant articles from the select board after that. The next thing on the agenda was review approval of minutes. We don't have any to approve right now, but as I said, we have a backlog, and we have a very capable secretary who has expressed willing and able to get us through that backlog. So that is everything we have on the agenda.
Jay, if we are voting on filling that 15th slot, then most likely with Jimmy.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Are we rubber? I would prefer not to rubber stamp that if that's the process.
I mean, the process is we fill that role.
Okay.
Now, Liz appointed Jimmy to that role. Mm-hmm. There was a administrative issue with him getting on, but that's been cleared up. I don't, since it's not on the agenda that we're discussing who will fill that role, I don't want to discuss it too much more.
I'm not. It's not discussing it. So, if we are appointing that person, I'd prefer to see that person's background and get a sense of whether we believe that fills a gap that we have as a committee. If there's a specific domain expertise that we are lacking, I would prefer that we fill it.
Okay.
And make sure that this candidate, who I don't know, meets that need. Or at least I'd like to be able to see it beforehand.
I hear what you're saying.
Otherwise, we're effectively rubber stamping that. And procedurally, that's just not something I'm not comfortable with.
Yep, I hear you. Thank you.
What is the name again?
Oh,
Cyber
Jimmy Sternaris.
How do you spell that, Jay?
It's on the website. I can spell it a lot easier than I can. Sorry, I asked him how to pronounce it, and I'm just, It's on the website because he's listed as a member on the website because
okay.
snafu. Stounoras.
Stenoris?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that concludes the meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.